Hey everyone, it's Strange Michael. I hope you're doing well today. Of course, I am in the middle of my Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie reviews, and here I am talking about Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, or Part 2. I've seen it called Part 2 on some of the posters that were parodies of The Breakfast Club from back in the day. That might sound weird if you didn't know about that, because it's not this cover right here. This is the thing. I can't stand this movie. I think it sucks. I think it's horrible. And I'm probably one of the few people who feel that way. I've only heard one other person say that, and that is Alex from the Skeleton Crew podcast I used to watch all the time. They don't make videos anymore, that's why I don't watch them, and I still watch reruns and whatever. Are they reruns if you're just clicking on them? Anyway, it's not cable. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 came out in 1986. Yes, 12 years after the OG original 1974 classic movie. It's also directed by Tobe Hooper, and I assume co-written by him with a different co-writer this time around. This is the thing. Tobe Hooper, one of the biggest issues I have with this guy, that I've always had a problem with, is when he started saying that the original film was a comedy as well. I don't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. I think you're lying, just to make Part 2 feel better out of ego. That's my personal opinion, but I could be wrong. If you happen to think the original film from 1974 is a classic comedy, let me know. I'd love to hear that, because the black humor in there is not really, like, good black humor. It's just kind of supposed to be villainous, evil humor from the bad guys, you know? Anyway, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, I despise. I have a couple of very small things I like about it, but really not much, if I'm being honest with you. Of course, after the events of Part 1, this is kind of a spoiler for the end of Part 1, the villains all get away. All of them. All three of the brothers. And yes, they are brothers. This film does specify that Chop Top, Leatherface, and the other guy that we thought was the dad is a brother. They get away. And these movies all kind of don't really fit together. Part 1 and Part 2 kind of do, but for the most part, 2, 3, and 4 really kind of annoy each other and ignore each other quite a bit. And they annoy me too, which is even more annoying. So, Part 2 here, basically these guys all went missing. We don't know where they are, and they're kind of hiding out in like a cavernous type of thing, apparently, underground. Now, every once in a while they show back up, and they kill people, they attack people. In this movie in particular, we follow Dennis Hopper, who apparently, I believe, is Sally and Franklin's uncle, I think is what it's specified as. Like, they were his brother's kids, I think is what the film said. Pretty sure he's their uncle. Dennis Hopper, I'm not the biggest fan of ever. I think he's a good actor, but I never was obsessed with the guy. I grew up on things like Speed, not the drug, but the movie. And I knew about Dennis Hopper, I just didn't know him by name, you know what I mean? He's a good actor, really is, and I'm sad that he's dead. He's been gone for a while now, I think like, what, 10 years, 8 years? It's been a while. He's a good actor, and he's good here, but the film itself, the direction it goes with his character as the uncle, it's kind of not your traditional revenge story that it should be. He's kind of a dude that is looking for Leatherface, looking for the brothers, and he can't really find them. He's just kind of looking for hints, and he starts seeing killings of chainsaw stuff in different parts of wherever they're at. I don't even know if they're in Texas anymore. I'm pretty sure they are, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, the film itself is very much a goofball comedy. Yes, a goofball comedy. I saw this film one time. I rented it way back in the day after I became a huge fan of the first film, after I saw the remake too, and I picked up the second film. I rented it with my mom, and we absolutely hated it. We thought it was awful. We thought it was so unbelievably stupid on how deliberate it was trying to be about its comedy. I think it's awful, and I think Tobe Hooper really dropped the ball here. It's a great example of why I'm not a big Tobe Hooper guy. I think some of his stuff is so bland, outside of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1, that I never could click with the guy. I just couldn't click with his work, like Poltergeist, for example, or like Funhouse, for example. Just not a fan of him. I'm not. But it's kind of like a Wes Craven thing. Like, Wes Craven and Tobe Hooper are both talented. I'm just not a massive fan of either. I like certain projects they did, like Nightmare on Elm Street and The Scream. That's about it, you know? It's just, I don't know. I'm just like that. But then we have another chick who works at a radio show in this movie. Her name is Stretch. It's her nickname. And she is fine. She is a beautiful woman. And she has a great voice too, very pleasant accent and all of that. And she's the radio host, and she happens to be on a phone call with a couple of wild teenagers who are shooting guns at like local street signs and stuff. They get attacked by Leatherface and Chop Top on the side of the road. They don't know it's them, but we know it's them because of the chainsaw and the dead body they use to kind of cover themselves as they try to kill these two guys. And it's kind of an action-packed scene. The film doesn't start off on the worst note ever, but it just, slowly as it progresses, it gets goofier and goofier, because it's deliberately trying to do that. Like I said, it's trying to be a comedy. That beginning, though, with these two teens, or adults, young adults, whatever they are, is pretty good. I don't mind it. I don't mind it at all. It's actually horrifically gruesome. I think Tom Savini, I believe, did the effects for this film, and they look fantastic. When somebody's getting completely butchered, it looks great. This ain't taking points from the 12 years previous original movie about being kind of like subtle about not having a bunch of gore and trying to make it very psychological in that respect. It's not doing that. It's being super bloody because, of course, the 80s were the time to do super amounts of gore in movies. This series is much more bloody from part 2 on. It just is. It always has been from that point on. The original film is, like, violent, but it's not gory. You know what I mean? There is a difference. Now, following Stretch, she eventually comes into contact with Dennis Hopper's character, who I think was, like, named Lefty or something. And they kind of team up to try to hunt down Leatherface when she shows him the tape that she plays over the radio of her interview with these two guys as they were being killed by Leatherface, and you could hear the chainsaw in the background. She wanted to make sure that he knew about this when she heard about his pleas to go find Leatherface. That team up between these two, Stretch and Lefty, I believe is his name, they're great. I really like both of them. I think they are the heart and soul of this movie. Everything else, I can't stand. I hate Leatherface in this film. I think he is just awful. I think the look of him is awful. Not that the actor did a bad job, but the look of him is awful. He looks like that one wrestler that took off like the brown leather strap mask thing. I think his name was like Mick Foley or something. I don't know what the hell his name was. I didn't watch wrestling enough to know that, but I just knew the look of that guy. He looks like old Mick Foley, or whatever his name is, from Once Upon a Time in the WWE lands. And he is just obnoxious. I can't stand Leatherface in the film. Then Chop Top is played by Bill Moseley, a phenomenal actor. Of course, you've seen him in Devil's Rejects. You've seen him in a lot of stuff that you don't realize. And Bill Moseley is absolutely a talented actor. He mimics that original actor from the first original movie named Chop Top, the hitchhiker, if you don't know him. He mimics him very well, but he also has, like, the side of his head missing where he's been, like, picking away, and he has, like, a metal, like, thing under his brain. And I used to think it was because of the end of the first film and when he gets hit by a truck, but it's not. It's actually, like, he apparently had this in, like, Vietnam or something. I don't know. I don't know when he got it. He just had it. And he, like, picks away at his skin with a coat hanger and then burns it, but also eats his own skin. It's really fucked up. Chop Top is horrifically creepy in this film. But it's also too goofy. It's too goofy. It mimics the first film's Chop Top very well. Very, very well. But I don't like what we do here. Bill Moseley is a great actor. Don't get me wrong. It's just the script they gave him, the direction they gave him, I think was bad. I think it was truly, truly bad. And of course, the guy we thought was the dad, I can't remember his name to save my life because I just don't care about him enough to save my life. Even though he's great in the first film, he's good here too. That guy that we thought was the dad of Leatherface and Chop Top is really the brother. He looks like a ventriloquist dummy. He's here and he's actually making a living selling chili and winning like chili contests and stuff. He wins like the best chili in his area, which is horrific because you probably know what's in it. And aside from that, they're all kind of hiding underground, you know, like I said. Really, this is just kind of a dull hour and 40-minute long film trying to be this hardcore comedy, again, with even posters that mimic The Breakfast Club, which is just, what the fuck were they thinking? What the fuck was Tobe Hooper, of all people, thinking? Just poor decision after poor decision. A lot of the jokes in here go on forever. There are Leatherface making sexual jokes over and over and over again. There's one in particular that makes me cringe so bad because it goes on for easily 5 minutes of this hour and 40-minute long film. 5 minutes doesn't sound like a whole lot, but when you're trying to sit through a film that you already hate, that you knew you hated going into it to watch for a marathon, well, Jesus. It is truly awful. I hate the writing on the film. Aside from Stretch and Lefty, again, I think that's Dennis Hopper's character's name, I think both of them are the heart and soul of this film. I think they do a really good job. They're fun to watch. I like their interactions, especially Stretch. She's beautiful, man. Really fun to just watch her eat up the scenery around her, trying to survive this horrible situation with Leatherface. And watching the direction that Dennis Hopper's character goes in the finale is really fun. I like that a whole lot. It's really wild. The film has a very much, there is no atmosphere, but there's a 1980s tone and atmosphere to it. It's not incredibly well made. The budget's higher than the original film, obviously, but that 1980s feel is very much there, that texture of it. It has a lot of 80s rock-type music in it that might sound completely misplaced, because it absolutely is. But I love the music. It's really good, even though the film is bad. So let me clarify that, too. If your song was in this movie, great job. I loved it. That's the best, most memorable thing aside from Stretch and Lefty. Outside of that, everything in this film is bad. Everything in it's bad. I hate most of it. I'm trying to think of what else. I talked about the practical effects being really good. The cinematography and direction are not that great. There's a couple of moments where the direction is okay. One particular jump scare with a hallway that has old records in it that I thought was really good at the radio station. That was a great jump scare. Really, really good. The practical effects, again, look amazing. I'm pretty sure Tom Savini did them. They are shockingly great. And this film is very bloody, as I mentioned too. Really good. Really love that about it too. But when it comes to story, when it comes to the tone, the execution, the comedic route that they fixed in part 3, mostly, they kind of have a lot of references in here, like on the cover of part 3 you have, what is it, the Saw's family? That line right there is in this film, part 2. So you have things like that that kind of carried over into part 2, and even kind of Next Generation, which is part 4 with Matthew McConaughey and Renee Zellweger. But for the most part, part 2, I fucking hate it. I think it's awful, and I was struggling so bad to get through the third act of this movie because I was so excited to see part 3. I'd never seen it, like I said. So, I don't know. Part 2, I hate it. I think it's awful. To be 12 years after the original film, I feel like it's personally a massive disgrace. It's a series that never should have had sequels. Well, I guess an original film, the 1974 film, should have never had sequels. It's too damn good to be wasted with garbage like this. And to have a Breakfast Club joke on the poster of the movie. Stuff like that bothers me so much with movies like this that are trying so hard to be so funny. If Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 came out now, it would get slaughtered. People would absolutely slaughter this. Imagine that this was the one that Netflix made. And the Netflix one was pretty bad. The 2022 film, it was a horrible movie. I didn't like it mostly. But imagine if this was what they made. How mad would people would have been, even if Tobe Hooper had made it in 2022? That would have been slaughtered on the internet, especially on YouTube, with all the people like Elvis the Alien and people like that. They would have made fun of this thing to death. Absolutely. Anyway, Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, or just 2, whatever you want to call it. Not a fan of this one, as you can tell, as you've heard me ramble for like 15 minutes. I hate it deeply. I think it's awful. It's got so much of a messy story, and it's just a dull piece of crap. I don't like this at all. I'm curious if you do. Please put your thoughts and comments down in the comment section down below and let me know what you think about it. If I had to rate it on a 5-star basis, I'd give it like a 2 out of 5 stars, mainly because I said this before in my old parts of my old channel, or my older parts of my channel. If there's anything I really like in a movie, or a book, or a game, or whatever I review on this channel, if there's something that I really, really like about it, I will say like it deserves a 2 out of 5. If it's a genuine thing that I think does affect the film, like Stretch, like Lefty, like the gore, like the music, if those things are really good, it deserves a 2 out of 5, but everything else gets a 1 out of 5. If anything is just completely bad and I don't like anything in it, it's a 1 out of 5. So that's why it gets saved a little bit on my rating scale. 2 out of 5 for me. Hate it so much. Cannot stand it. Can't wait to move along to the next film that I have more positive things to say about, even though it's still a little goofy, but it went back to being more serious in Part 3, which thank God they did that. Anyway, 2 out of 5 for Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 2, or 2, whatever you want to call it. Anyway, put your thoughts and comments down below, folks. Do you agree with me? Do you disagree with me? I'd love to see all that down below, too. Thank you, guys. God bless you all, and goodbye.